And today, don't jot these down for the moment, just have a read through of them with me. Today we're looking at the aims of punishment. And this importantly comes from an Act of Parliament. Right, so it's the Penalties and Sentences Act. And remember, I said legal studies teachers become disproportionately excited if you can reference the legislation that something comes from. So the Penalties and Sentences Act 1992 in Queensland. And it says there's a number of things that punishments aim to do. Right? They have to be fair, they have to look about rehabilitation, helping someone get better and better fit in society, to deter people from doing something again, right? To make it clear that it's not acceptable, some behaviour is not acceptable, denouncing that behaviour, and to protect the community from someone who might be an offender. So let's have a look at these in order. So the first thing that we talk about is retribution. So that's the eye for an eye concept. So what we're talking about here is that if the offender has done something bad to someone else, something bad should happen to them. So there's a feeling of fairness that comes from this retribution. So that's one of the aims of punishment. Rehabilitation is really important. The aim of this is to return the offender to the community, fitting back into society better. So an example of that might be someone who's a drug offender doing some drug courses while they're in jail. And part of the justification for that is it's much cheaper. Sending someone to jail is very, very expensive. We're talking $80,000, $90,000 a year. Okay? It can be a lot of money to keep someone in jail. And some people in high-level security would be even more than that. So that's why it's worth trying to rehabilitate people. Deterring. Okay? This is the idea that, for example, if I know there's a pretty good chance that I'm going to get caught shoplifting because I've heard that other people have been caught and gone to jail for it, I'm less likely. Right? So if we know that there's a punishment, then people are less likely to take that action. It's both at an individual, someone who's been punished for something, they won't do it again, but also at a community level. If they see that there's a consequence, they won't be as inclined to do that again. Denunciation. This is where the community says what you're doing is not okay. It's not an appropriate action. So you denounce that behaviour. It reinforces that certain acts are wrong. So for example, I think one thing the courts are wrestling with at the moment is that around online bullying. Okay? And how do you work around that? How do you create laws around that? Because it's clearly doing a lot of harm to people. And part of having laws and part of having punishments for people when that eventually comes in place is to say the community generally feels that this is not an acceptable behaviour. And the last one is prevention. If you have someone who's locked up in a jail cell, for example, as a punishment, they can't offend again. They can't be stealing or damaging property or whatever they were doing. So they're the various aims of punishment coming from that act that we talked about to start with.